Hi, hello. Um, there's gonna be a lot of videos today. Um, this is the first of many. So, today you're gonna listen to a 17-year-old talk about marriage. Great, right? Um, so listen. I am not here to tell people how to live their lives. I'm 17. If you really think about it, I kinda just started life. Um, I'm I'm pretty young. I'm in no place to tell people how to live their life. I'm just telling you about what I think I'm going to do with mine because plans always change, you know? Um, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, well, I'm never getting married because I don't know the future, and quite honestly, this is something that I go back and forth with myself on a lot. So if I can't even agree with myself, chances are that I'll probably change my mind at some point. I hope you enjoy my room. This is my wall. We're on my bed. And, huh, I've been very sick for a hot second. I've had a kidney infection that's just been killing me. So that's why there's no movement, you know? Anyway, so when my mom was 17, she got married. Um, I'm currently 17, like I said before. And to think that someone who's my age, who was like in a similar position and like point in life as me, got married, I can't fathom. Um, I can't imagine. And do whatever you want with your life. I strongly believe that you should do whatever makes you happy as long as it hurts no one. Um, if it doesn't hurt anyone, do it, If you want to get married young, go for it. I encourage. However, me personally, I could never imagine the craziness. But I think it's just she was in a different circumstance. She was in a different kind of point in time, I guess you could say. I'm not gonna be like, it was different back then, because that was like the 80s. It wasn't that long ago. Um, but yeah. So, she is a first generation Mexican American and Cuban American. Her dad was from Cuba, her mom was from Mexico. They grew up very poor. She grew up like kind of in a bad family situation, so I don't really blame her for wanting to get out of the house. Her getting married makes sense. Now, here's the tricky part. Anyone of any culture will know that people who are very traditional, in most cultures, it's kind of seen as very important for women to get married. I'm a woman, in case you couldn't tell. Um, and basically, I have kind of already felt this pressure to one day get married, to one day succeed, and I just don't like it. I don't want to get married. I have no interest in getting married to someone. I have no interest in spending the rest of my life with one person. Those things just don't appeal to me. Now, I will say that again, that can change. I'm 17. Um, I would like to hope that I have a long life ahead of me. I could be wrong. Let's hope I don't get struck by lightning tomorrow. But I'm just saying that I personally just do not see the benefit of marriage for me personally. The way I feel about married people is kind of the way I feel about, like doctors and firefighters and like teachers. Like, I'm so glad that they exist. I'm so happy that somebody out there wants to do that, but I never want to do that personally. It's kind of the same way I feel about parents as well. Like, I'm so glad that somebody out there wants to dedicate their lives to that. And I'm so glad that I'm not that somebody. And I'm grateful for them, but I don't want to ever be them. And it's kind of expected to get married in a lot of cultures, like I said, especially in Mexican culture. Although Mexican Americans, not so much. Um, you know, m- uh, the average Mexican American that I know, and I'm a Mexican American, Like all of my family, like, and I'm not generalizing here, just because this is my experience doesn't mean that this is going to be the experience of all Mexican Americans or Mexicans in general. I don't speak for the collective, I speak for me. Like, in my experience, they'll get married like 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times, and they'll have like 4 or 5 different baby daddies. Sometimes they won't get married at all. It's a chaotic mess. But in principle, you're supposed to get married. That's the idea. The idea of getting married is kind of pushed on you. Now, whether or not you actually follow through with that is a little different, but, you know, honestly, people get judged for having multiple baby daddies. Nothing wrong with that. I don't judge you one bit. You know what, girl? You got some variety. You know what you're looking for. Oh. But as far as not wanting to get married, I'm just going to offer some reasons as to why I currently don't see it to be fitting. The number one, most, like, atop of everything, is probably just change. We live in a forever changing universe. If you look at the world and everything around you, it changes. In 100 years, I'm gonna be dead. My life will change because it will stop happening. My life will cease to exist. In a year from now, I will probably be a completely different person because when you're young, you change at a rapid fire pace. And then when I'm 30, I'm gonna be completely different than what I am now. It's change happens so rapidly all the time. And so change happens to everything, including feelings. If you're in love with someone today, you may not be in love with them 10 years from now. And not necessarily that you don't love them, because me personally, I think that if you love someone, you're going to love them forever. If you really, truly do love them. Okay, like, there's a difference between an infatuation or just having feelings for someone. Those things are different than actually loving someone. If you love someone, I think you'll love them forever. You may not be obsessed with them forever, but a part of you is always going to think about them. And if you love someone, they've kind of become a part of you. But the truth is that I think why so many marriages fail, especially nowadays, is because change. It's just, you cannot expect for things to stay the same, and that includes your relationship dynamic. And so, in order to keep a marriage alive, you got to kind of change together, which is the other thing. If you're changing together, that's compromise. That brings me to the second thing, compromise. If you're willing to really compromise with someone for the rest of your life and they're really willing to do it with you for the rest of their life, I mean, great. I personally don't want that. I don't want to have to compromise on the things I want in my life because the person that I've chosen to spend my life with isn't interested, or because they don't want to do this, or because whatever it is, and that's the other thing. Like, the main thing for me is you see a lot of women, especially, kind of change and shift their whole life around for a guy. Or not even just for a guy, they don't have to be straight. It could literally just be a relationship. Lesbians do it too. As a bisexual, I would know. I'm just saying that it's more prevalent among heterosexual couples for sure. But women, for some odd reason in society, they kind of have this expectation that they follow along with what their husband does or what their partner does. There's kind of this expectation that he moves, you move with him, but you follow. He's not following you. So you are going down his path, not vice versa. Um, and I just don't fuck with that. I just personally don't. And, you can say, oh, well, that's not true anymore, or, times have changed. Times have not changed as much as you think they do. And we grew up, all of us, kind of subconsciously listening to those messages, like all those little things, like even in the media. So I love the story of Cinderella. I do. I played Cinderella in a musical once. Cinderella's great A, love her. Um, but I think that people have kind of misinterpreted that whole story and have taken it in a bad way. I don't think Cinderella, I can't speak. I don't think Cinderella ever really wanted to go to the ball with intentions to meet the prince. I think she just went to have a good night out, right? But when she did get there and she did meet her prince, her life kind of followed him after that. And no shade to her because, that's the time period and that's just all time periods actually. And plus, I mean, with her bad situation, I would have done that too. You know what? This was a bad example and I'm getting into another tangent. The point is I don't know if I'm comfortable stifling my potential for somebody else's growth, because if I'm not working on myself, if I'm not improving myself, if I'm not growing and changing, but I'm worried about somebody else growing and changing and I'm following them and I'm growing into kind of just an extension of them, it's just, that's so sad to me because so much potential just got lost. That's the thing that people don't understand. Everybody has so much potential, but especially young girls, right? Especially women. And I feel like when they get married, all that potential could be gone. And I'm not saying that that's with every relationship. There are plenty of marriages, I'm sure, where both of them are free to grow in a way that they reach their full potential and both of them are very happy and healthy within the relationship. That's great. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that's the majority of marriages because I definitely don't. I 100% do think that one person, most of the time, kind of just bends to the will of the other. And like 90% of the time, I'm going to say that that's the woman in this equation if it's a heterosexual relationship. And listen, it's not even on purpose, I feel like so many straight guys out there, they mean well, they really do. And there's a lot of them that are very sweet. Again, we're generalizing here. We're not talking about all of them. There's lots of them that are very sweet. But a lot of them, they mean well, but they don't realize that they value their own goals and their own ambitions before hers or their partners, whoever it is that they're with, and then they kind of just force their partner to go along for the ride and not really get their own experience out of life. And it's just so tragic. There's no better way, in my opinion, to waste a lifetime than to follow somebody else's lifetime. It's not ideal in my mind. So that's that. And then there's also just marriage is a very old concept. And, everything old can be made new again for certain. But I I don't necessarily think that in order to be committed to someone, I have to sign a paper. I don't necessarily think in order to be committed to someone, I have to legally bind us together. It's honestly, in my mind, if I'm with someone and we're very committed to each other, I would think that it's an even bigger sign of commitment because people will say, oh, well, marriage is a big sign of commitment. I think it's an even bigger sign of commitment if you decide to not marry them. Because once you marry someone, it's kind of difficult to get a divorce because it can be expensive, or depending on the area or the situation, it can be even more difficult. It can take time. All those things are extensive. And so to me, when people are together when they're married, it kind of forces them to stay together when they don't want to be because they're like, well, I don't want to get divorced. And plus, marriage, there's this idea that in order to have a successful marriage, you must stay together forever and like till death do you part, they always say it, right? That is crazy to me because nothing is forever. We already stated that. Nothing is forever. And you can love someone for all your lifetime. That doesn't mean that your relationship is going to work for all your lifetime. You can love someone, but not be with them. And it's just the whole forever idea, scrap it. Like, and again, I'm sure that there are some marriages out there that they last for their entire lifetime and they're very happy, and you know what? Good for them. But I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that that's the majority because it's not. And I feel like if you're not legally bonded to someone, but yet you're still committed to them, that to me is a way bigger sign of commitment than marriage ever could be. You know, to me, marriage is, if you do the ceremony, it's just like, okay, well, let me go in front of this entire room of my family, friends, everybody who knows me, and declare publicly to everyone that I'm forever gonna love this person, that I'm forever gonna be with this person, that this is forever. Which I don't know about that, you know? I just don't know about that. And hi, I'm back. I moved for a bit. So as I was saying, now I'm gonna probably get into more historical background of marriage in general and kind of point out why I don't really feel like it needs to be in the modern world. I feel like marriage is good for certain people, but for the most part, it's definitely more of a lifestyle, I would say. If you're into the married lifestyle, good for you. If not, cool. But, um, marriage, historically speaking, is really just kind of exchanging property, if you will. Because women for the longest time were considered property. In fact, they still are in many parts of the world. And if they're not legally considered property, then they sure as hell are treated like property at times. And so marriage was kind of just the exchange of property. Marriage was just like, hey, you have a donkey and 3 blankets. If you give me them, I will give you my daughter in exchange. Um, and it's like that. Or it's just kind of like arranged marriages. Those still happen. They're very common. Child marriage, which is just straight up child abuse and happens in like every country of the world. Even if you don't think it does, it does. Small communities. But it's just marriage, historically speaking, hasn't been very good, and it has never been for love. It's only in modern times that all of a sudden we have this idea of we marry for love, you know? And it's a pretty idea, but I think it was really just a way to make a quick dollar off of people's feelings. And I honestly think that it's also just a way to kind of give women something to look forward to in life before, women were allowed to have career ambitions and to have actual dreams and goals of their own. Because for the longest time, and for a lot of women still, their main goal and dream in life is to marry a man and then have his bastard children. And if you have a goal of marrying someone one day and having kids with them, that's great. I'm not here to judge you. If that's what makes you happy, go for it. Most definitely go for it. But I do feel as though you should have more goals than that, especially if you're a woman, because I've been thinking, I have really no interest in getting married, but having a wedding sounds pretty dope, right? Having a party and, the fancy dress and all these things. And I'm not even that feminine of a female. And listen, I'm not shaming feminine female because feminine women are amazing and I love them. But anyway, I myself am not even that feminine. I can be at some times, but for the most part, I'm not overly feminine, and so I don't really have a big interest in, big wedding gowns, but something about having a wedding appeals to me, right? And I think that the reason that appeals to me is because when I was a little girl, I was told that that was kind of my main mission in life. And so it just feels like a box that I gotta check off. Because in our society, it seems like that is the main way to determine success as a woman, to say, I got married, I had kids, I did all these things. Which is why there's all these stereotypes of, oh, men don't get married, you'll be stuck on a leash, or, marriage sucks for men, but for women, it's a dream come true. It's not true. It's not a dream come true for women either. Any relationship of any kind, whether it's a marriage or friendship or anything, has its difficulties and will have its hardships. And I just find it ironic that our society has kind of made women believe that not only is marriage and kids their sole purpose and their sole goal in life, that it's kind of like something that they should look forward to, right? I don't know about you, but the idea of me being pushed in to a giant dress that I can barely fit in, have my hair and everything done, and make everybody just stare at me and walk down an aisle and be given away by my father. to some man that I now have to spend the rest of my life with, it sounds absolutely miserable. It sounds like the stuff that would of nightmares. Honestly, sounds like the stuff of nightmares. And just because it feels so much like the beginning of the end. It's just, listen, I'm sure that maybe one day I'll get married and I'll be very happy with it. But if I ever do get married, I want to feel so strongly that over everything, that I'm not following this person throughout life, that I am not kind of just following along with them. I don't want to become their sidekick or their personal assistant, I'm my own person. Unpopular opinion, I have my own dreams too. Um, so yeah. And I also have decided that I definitely don't want to get married young or have kids young, which, listen, my whole family gives me major shit about. Like, all of my Mexican family, especially, they love to tell me, oh, well, don't wait so long to have kids. That's weird. Have kids like when you're like 20. I'm like, homeboy, no. Or get married soon. Do all these things. Fuck all of that. All of that sounds like complete shit. And I'm just sick of people making marriage and having kids sound like it's the pinnacle of a woman's life. Because on the white side, it's pressured heavily too. In fact, kids and marriage are probably pushed more on the white side of my family. It's insane. Listen, you're not an unsuccessful woman if you never get married. If you live the rest of your life completely alone, if you don't have a relationship at all, you're not unsuccessful. If you never have kids, you're not unsuccessful as a woman because you and who you are is not defined based on some standard that society set for you out of pure sexism. It's sexist. Just say it. It's true. It's sexist. If you want to get married, great. But I've been asking myself, I don't really want to get married. I don't really want all the things that are entailed with the marriage, but I still feel pressure to one day have a marriage, to one day have kids, to one day do all these things. I still feel very pressured to do these things, even though I don't want to do any of these things. And, why is it that I have a weird fantasy of a wedding, but not actually of getting married? I don't want to fucking marry anyone. Um, but listen, yeah, if I if I ever do get married, because I've thought about it before, I can't deny. Um, then I just hope that it's not something that I feel pushed into, and I hope that it's more for me, because that's the other thing. Like, weddings in itself feel like they're for everybody else except for the bride. And it's so weird because this idea of weddings and marriage, it's pushed like it's for the bride. The narrative that everybody likes to say is that it's for the woman. This is her big day. This is the happiest day of her life. All that fucking bullshit lies. That narrative is heavily pushed. But I mean, it kind of actually isn't. I'm shaking the camera. It kind of actually isn't. Because if you really think about it, first off, weddings hella expensive if you go all out. Most weddings nowadays are hella expensive. And wedding planners and like just people who coordinate weddings, they will charge you more just because they can. They will charge you for things that are unnecessary. Oh, that like bouquet of flowers that's normally $20, that's 60 now. Just because they can. That's what I'm saying. They're profiting off of your love, your forever endeavor. They're profiting off of it for sure. And it's honestly just, there's so much pressure, especially on the bride. Like, there's this pressure to lose weight. There's this pressure to look the best you've ever looked in your life. Because the reason that there's so much pressure is because people think it's the pinnacle of their life. They think that this is the biggest moment for them, and that after that it's just kind of fucking downhill until they have a kid. And then they have a kid, and then it's downhill again. Like, it's just, honestly, if you get married and you're a bride, especially, I'm talking specifically to the women right now, do not put so much pressure on yourself to look perfectly beautiful because society does that enough. You don't need to do that, okay? You don't need to put more pressure on yourself any more than society's already putting on you. You look beautiful. You always have. You always will. And, you know, it's just so sad that a day that is supposed to be filled with so much joy, a day that you're supposed to enjoy, is just compiled with all of this stress and compiled with all of these fears and anxieties simply based around the way you look. And there's this idea to have the perfect big masterpiece of a wedding and to have a huge wedding party. That's all bullshit too, you know? It's just a way to throw money down the pit because the closest thing I've ever experienced to having my own wedding would be my quinceañera. And I'm sure weddings are that times a million for sure. But even that was just stressful as hell. You know, big events are stressful. And looking back on it, I wish I hadn't stressed myself out so much. I wish I hadn't put so much pressure on myself. And it's so sad. It's so sad. And it's also just kind of sexist because people will go up to the bride and they'll be like, when are you starting your diet? Because the wedding is in 7 months. It's in a year from now. Okay, well, you don't go up to the groom and be like, hey, when are you starting your diet? The wedding's 8 months from now. Like, it's completely unfair and it's just not right. And there's just this weird obsession with women getting married. It's like men compete for jobs and compete for power in our society, and women compete for men who have power so that they can just feel maybe an ounce of what it's like to feel control over their own lives. Women will compete for men while men compete for power, and when there's a woman who has a powerful man, she'll realize that he was never going to share that power with her in the first place and that she's now just on the sidelines. You know, that's the other thing. In relationships, oftentimes, we kind of get in this idea of, oh, okay, well, if they have more power than me in some way, if there's some weird power dynamic, you know, they'll share. You know, they love me or whatever. It's just, it's not natural for people to do that. People love power. And if someone has a power dynamic kind of over you, it's going to stay that way. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. But this video has been super fucking long, so I think we'll end it here. But yeah, I just like to end this on do not do anything because society or someone else is telling you to do it. Do something because you want to. Do something because when you look back on your life, you would regret it had you not done it. That's why you should do things. Those are what your actions should be about. If you're not hurting anyone, forge your own path, most definitely. And I know it's scary, especially if you're a girl, because so badly society wants to keep you in a box. But don't let it stifle your potential. You have so much of it. So, yeah. All right. I'd just like to say no shade to anyone who's married or is getting married. If you're married or you're getting married, I hope you have a long and wonderful, happy relationship. And I wish nothing but the best for you. And if you want to get married, cool. I'm not here to shit on you by any means. If you don't want to, cool. But again, do what you want to do for you.